came home at 4:12 in the morning. I remember the exact time because the microwave clock blinked at me when I walked into the dark kitchen. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that says everyone's asleep. The kind that feels empty. My boots thudded against the tile, and I heard the echo. Jessica wasn't on the couch. Not in the bedroom either. I didn't even hear the dogs barking like they usually did when I came in from a night shift. No shoes by the door, no coat, no phone charging on the counter, just silence. After 22 years of marriage, silence was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I wasn't suspicious, not at first. I was tired. I'd just finished another double shift, covering for a guy whose kid had a fever, dispatching trucks across 3 states while trying to stay awake on bad coffee. All I wanted was a hot shower in my side of the bed. Instead, I got a voicemail. Jessica's voice, shaky. "Hey, I'm staying at Carla's tonight. I needed some space. Please don't call." No explanation, no context, just that. I stood in the kitchen, phone still in my hand, watching the blue light fade from the screen like it could offer answers if I waited long enough. My heart didn't race. It dropped, like it knew something before I did. Jessica never stayed out, ever, not even during our worst fights. And Carla? She lived 40 minutes away and had a newborn. Jessica hated driving at night. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. I didn't call. I sat down at the kitchen table and waited. By 9 a.m., she still hadn't come back. I fed the dogs, took a shower, and called in sick for the first time in 4 years. I couldn't think straight. My hands were shaking, my jaw clenched so hard it ached. And the thing is, I still wanted to believe this was nothing. But then the text started. My sister. "Is Jess okay? She didn't show up to lunch yesterday." Our neighbor Joe. "Hey man, meant to ask. Everything cool? Saw Jess with some guy getting into a white SUV last night." Our son David. "Mom's not answering. Should I be worried?" By noon, I knew I was being played. I drove to Carla's. She opened the door in her pajamas, baby on her hip, eyes puffy from sleep. She had no idea what I was talking about. Jessica hadn't been there, and she hadn't heard from her in days. The next part is blurry, like a bad dream, where you're shouting but no sound comes out. I went back home, tore through the house looking for clues. Nothing. Not until I checked the shared iPad, which Jessica always forgot to log out of. Her Facebook was still open. There were messages, dozens of them, and one name I didn't recognize at first. Eric Dalton. Photos, inside jokes, screenshots of hotel confirmations. A picture of the two of them on a hiking trail I'd never been to. Him kissing her cheek while she smiled like a teenager. Like the woman I used to know. The woman I thought still loved me. I don't remember how long I sat there staring at that screen. I just know that when I finally moved, my coffee was cold, and the dogs were whining at the door, wanting out. Life was moving around me, but I wasn't in it anymore. It was like watching your life through a window while someone else lived it. She came home that night, walked in like nothing had happened. Hair freshly washed, wearing the same cardigan I gave her for our anniversary 2 years ago. I said nothing. Just watched her put her purse down, check her phone, glance at me like I was a stranger. Then she said softly, "We need to talk." I didn't speak. I didn't nod. I just waited. She sat down across from me and stared at the table, not me. "I never meant to hurt you." That's how she started. Like that line was supposed to soften the blow. Then came the words I'd never forget. I haven't loved you in a long time. I just didn't know how to leave. She said it like she'd been rehearsing. I haven't loved you in a long time. I just didn't know how to leave. The words dropped between us like glass. Fragile, sharp, impossible to ignore. I wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because I'd spent over 2 decades thinking we were solid. Flawed, sure, what marriage isn't? But I thought we were in it together. Turns out, I was building a home while she was planning her escape route. She kept talking, but I only caught pieces. Words like unhappy, lonely, and we grew apart. Nothing about the late nights I worked so she didn't have to. Nothing about how I took care of her through that surgery or how I sold my truck when we fell behind on the mortgage. Just her feelings, her version of the truth. I didn't interrupt. I didn't yell. I just watched her lie to my face with tears in her eyes, as if that made it noble. When she finally stopped, I asked the one question that had been burning in my throat since I saw those messages. How long? She looked at me like a child caught stealing, hesitant, guilty. Almost a year, she said. A year. A year of pretending. A year of coming home to me, kissing me goodnight, asking me to fix things around the house, all while sneaking away to sleep with someone else. A year of fake smiles, fake hugs, fake promises. I nodded, stood up, and walked out of the room. If I stayed, I'd say something I'd regret. And I still cared enough not to be cruel. I slept in the basement that night. Not that I slept much. I sat on the old recliner with a blanket over me, the dogs curled up at my feet, wondering how a man like me, loyal, hard-working, devoted, ended up discarded like a worn-out coat. The next morning, I told her I wanted a separation. She didn't argue, just nodded and went to the bedroom to pack a bag. It was like she'd been waiting for permission to leave. She moved in with a friend from work. Not Eric, the affair partner, but some woman named Melissa. At least, that's what she said. I didn't check. I didn't care. I was done being the detective in a life I thought was real. What hurt most wasn't the affair. It was how easy it was for her to walk away. 22 years. Gone in a week. Our son David came by that weekend. He's 20 in college, smart kid, quiet like me. He looked at me, saw the boxes in the hallway, and asked, "Is Mom gone?" I nodded. He didn't ask why. He just hugged me. Later that night, he said, "I always thought something felt off, but I didn't want to believe it." That hit harder than I expected. Because if he saw it and I didn't, what kind of man does that make me? I started therapy a few days later. Found a guy named Raymond who specializes in betrayal trauma. I thought it was a buzzword until I sat in that chair and couldn't speak for 10 minutes. My throat just locked up. When I finally talked, I told him everything. The years of effort. The subtle signs I ignored. The guilt I carried even though I was the one who got cheated on. And how stupid I felt for still loving her, even after all of it. Raymond didn't say much. But he looked at me like I mattered, like I wasn't just some fool who got played. That alone was enough to make me come back the next week. One evening, about 3 weeks after she left, Jessica called me. I stared at the screen for a long time. I could have ignored it, could have blocked her, but part of me needed to know what she wanted. So I answered. "Hi," she said softly. I didn't reply. "Hi, I'm sorry. I didn't know how badly I hurt you." Still, I said nothing. I made a mistake. That's when I spoke. "No, you made a choice, and you kept making it every day for a year. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. She went quiet, then started crying. Real sobbing, not the performative kind. "I ruined everything," she whispered. "You did," I agreed. "But you knew what you were doing. Don't pretend it just happened." And I hung up. It felt final, like I closed a door that had been creaking open for too long. That night, I slept upstairs in our bed, alone. And for the first time in weeks, I actually rested. Not because I was over it, but because I finally knew it wasn't my fault. The days after that phone call felt strange. Not peaceful exactly, but quiet in a way I hadn't felt in years. Like standing in the wreckage after a storm. The house was still, the air heavy, but I could finally hear myself think. I started noticing things. The empty coat hook by the door, the way the couch didn't sink in on one side anymore, how the fridge stayed cleaner longer, how the laundry basket filled up slower. There was no one asking what I wanted for dinner, no one half listening to my stories from work, no one pretending. And I realized I'd been lonely for a long time, even before the affair. I just didn't let myself feel it. It's funny. You can live with someone for decades and still not see how far apart you've grown until the silence is the only thing left between you. Jessica texted a few times. Never long messages. Just short things like, "Did you pay the power bill? I left my black jacket. Can I come get it? I'm sorry again." I didn't answer most of them. I forwarded the bill login, left her jacket on the porch. I owed her civility. Nothing more, but healing? That wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong, ready to rebuild. Others, I stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m., reliving every moment, wondering what I missed. There was a moment I'll never forget. I was cleaning out the attic, looking for a box of old Christmas lights, and found a photo album Jessica had made for our 10-year anniversary. It had captions she'd written by hand, inside jokes. "Our first real date, you forgot your wallet. Your face when David was born." I sat on the floor with that album in my lap for an hour, maybe more, just flipping through pages of a life that felt like someone else's. I wanted to be angry, to scream, to rip it in half. But I didn't. I just cried, and I let myself cry. No shame, no pretending. Just grief, not just for the betrayal, but for the death of something I believed in. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't crying over her. I was crying over the version of me that believed in forever. It sounds cliche, but I started doing small things for myself. I bought a better coffee machine, changed the curtains she always hated, but I secretly liked. I started going for walks in the morning, taking the long way around the neighborhood just to feel the air. I even joined a local book club. Me, Mark Whitaker, the guy who hadn't read a novel since high school. The group was mostly older women, a couple retired guys. They didn't care about my past. They just liked that I listened. One evening, we read a story about a man whose wife left him without warning. The main character kept watering a plant she'd left behind, even though he hated it. Someone in the group asked, "Why do you think he did that?" I said without thinking, "Because he needed something to care for, even if it was hers." The room went quiet. Then someone said, "Damn, Mark." I don't know why, but I smiled. It felt good to say something that came from me. Not the husband, not the victim, just me. A few weeks later, Jessica emailed me. A long one. She said she wasn't with Eric anymore, that it ended badly, that he'd lied to her too, that she missed me, that she realized too late what we had, that she'd go back and undo it all if she could. She ended with, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll talk to me again." I read it twice, sat with it, then closed the laptop. Because here's the truth she'll probably never understand. It wasn't just the affair. It was how easy it was for her to betray me, how quietly she chose herself, how little she looked back. You don't come back from that. You move forward, one slow, quiet, hard-earned day at a time. The first time I saw her again in person was at the grocery store. It had been almost 2 months. I was reaching for a carton of eggs when I heard someone say my name. "Mark?" I turned, and there she was, standing at the end of the aisle like a ghost from a life I'd already buried. She looked smaller. Not physically, just dimmer. Like the version of her I had known had burned out, and what was left was someone trying to remember who she used to be. She smiled, awkwardly. I didn't. She stepped closer. "How are you?" I shrugged. "Fine." That was all I gave her. No warmth, no bitterness, just facts. Because I wasn't there to make her feel better. And I wasn't about to let her pull me back into that dance where I pretended everything was okay for her sake. She looked at the ground. "I've been meaning to call." I didn't answer. She picked up a box of cereal she didn't need, held it like a shield. "I heard about David getting on the dean's list. That's amazing." I nodded. "Are you still at the same job?" "Yeah." She bit her lip like she wanted to say more. Maybe something dramatic, maybe something desperate. But I didn't care. I said, "Take care," and walked away. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pride. It was peace. Because I finally understood. I didn't need closure. I didn't need her apology to feel whole again. The absence of pain was the closure. And I carried that moment with me for the next few weeks like armor. Until she showed up at the house. It was a Saturday. I was in the garage fixing the lawnmower, heard a car's door slam and footsteps on the gravel. Jessica stood at the edge of the driveway, holding a folder. "I'm not here to argue," she said. I stayed where I was. She held up the folder. "It's the divorce paperwork. I thought it might be easier if I brought them over. I've already signed." That surprised me. Not because I thought she'd fight it, but because for the first time, she wasn't trying to explain herself. She just looked tired, like someone who finally accepted the consequences of their choices. I took the folder, said thank you. She nodded, then hesitated. "Do you ever think about us?" I looked at her for a long second. "I think about who we used to be, not who we are now." She blinked, looked down, and then did something I didn't expect. She smiled, a real one, sad but honest. "I deserve that," she said. And for the first time since all this started, I didn't hate her. I didn't love her either. Not anymore. But I didn't want to punish her. I just wanted us both to move on. After she left, I stood in the garage holding those papers, staring at my name next to hers for the last time. Then I went inside, signed them, and sealed the envelope. It felt quiet. Not like an ending, more like turning a page. That night, I sat on the back porch with a glass of whiskey and watched the sun dip behind the trees. The dogs were asleep at my feet. A breeze moved through the grass, and I realized I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. Not for her to change, not for things to go back, not even for justice. I had let go, not because it was easy, but because holding on was costing me more than I could afford. People always say time heals. I don't think that's true. Time gives you space. Healing is what you choose to do with it. And me? I was finally choosing me. A few weeks after signing the divorce papers, I got an invitation in the mail. It was from my sister. She was throwing a backyard barbecue for her anniversary and wanted the whole family there. Normally, I would have found a reason to skip it. Crowds aren't my thing, and small talk wears me out. But something in me said, go. I showed up in jeans and a button-down, brought a cooler of drinks and a folding chair, sat in the shade most of the afternoon, sipping lemonade and watching kids run through sprinklers. It was simple. No drama. No performance. Just people who cared about each other, showing up. At one point, my sister's friend came over to introduce herself. Her name was Karen, not the meme kind, an actual kind woman with tired eyes and a warm laugh. She'd been divorced too, 10 years earlier. Her ex left her for someone younger, sounded familiar. We talked for a bit. Nothing flirty, nothing forced. Just two people who had been through something quietly painful and came out the other side still standing. Before she left, she said, "You have a calm way about you." That's rare these days. I didn't know how to answer that, but I smiled. After she walked away, I caught myself thinking something I hadn't in a long time. Maybe this part of my life isn't over. Maybe it's just different now. Back at home that night, I didn't feel lonely. I felt ready. Not for love, not yet, but for living again. David came by the next day to help me clear out the garage. He found a box labeled wedding stuff and carried it out like it was toxic waste. I told him to leave it. I'd handle it. Later, after he left, I opened it. Inside, our wedding album, old anniversary cards, a dried rose she once kept in her Bible, a playlist CD I made in 2005. It all felt like artifacts from another world. Not sad, just distant, like remembering a dream. I took the cards and album and packed them into a smaller box. Wrote David someday on the lid. Because as much as I wanted to forget it all, it was still part of his story too. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it out. I just put it away. Closure doesn't always look like fireworks or dramatic goodbyes. Sometimes it's just the quiet act of letting something rest where it belongs, in the past. I started sleeping better, waking up early, drinking my coffee on the porch instead of in the car, cooking for myself, not just microwaving frozen meals. I even started writing in a notebook, nothing fancy, just thoughts, bits of memory, small moments I didn't want to forget. One entry read, "She broke me, but breaking is not the same as ending." That's something I had to learn the hard way. One afternoon, I went into town to pick up dog food. Walking out of the store, I saw Eric Dalton across the parking lot. He didn't see me. He was on his phone, pacing by his car, looking flustered. He looked smaller than I imagined. Not physically, just unimpressive. There was a time I imagined confronting him, saying something powerful, demanding answers, making him feel what I felt. But now I just got in my truck and drove away. Because the truth is, he didn't take anything from me. What I had was with her. What they had was built on lies. Let them live with that. I didn't need revenge. I had peace. And peace is the one thing you can't fake. It's been almost a year now. Sometimes I still catch myself setting out 2 mugs in the morning. Habit is a strange thing. It lingers long after the people do. But then I laugh, shake my head, and pour just one. The silence in the house doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels earned. David visits often. We sit on the porch, talk about school, life, the future. He's seeing someone now, a kind girl named Alyssa. He tells me everything, probably more than I need to know. But I listen. I'm glad he talks to me. I never had that kind of openness with my own father. One night, he asked me. Do you think you'll ever date again? I told him the truth. I don't know, but I'm not afraid of it anymore. Because I'm not. Not afraid to trust again. Not afraid to be alone either. I've learned that solitude isn't emptiness. It's space. Space to breathe, to rebuild, to become something new. Jessica emailed me again a few weeks back. Just a simple line. I hope you're okay. I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because I am okay. She made her choices, and I made mine. I didn't become bitter. I didn't tear my life apart trying to understand the why. I stopped needing reasons. Sometimes people change. Sometimes they lie. Sometimes they leave. That's their journey. Mine is different now. I joined a hiking group. Nothing serious, just weekend trails with people who like fresh air and fewer words. One of them is a retired Marine named Glenn, who talks more to his dog than the rest of us. I like that. We hike in silence sometimes, just the crunch of boots and wind in the trees. And I find myself smiling during those walks. Not because I'm healed, not because I've moved on in the Hollywood sense, but because I'm present, fully, finally. One Sunday, I passed a couple on a trail bench. The woman was leaning into the man's shoulder, laughing at something he said. And for a moment it hurt. Not because I missed Jessica, but because I missed believing in that kind of simplicity. But then I realized I still believe in it. I still believe in love. I still believe in honesty. I still believe that the right kind of partnership feels like coming home, not walking on eggshells. What I no longer believe in is sacrificing yourself to keep something broken from falling apart. That's the difference now. A few nights ago, I found an old voice memo I'd recorded during the early days after she left. My voice was shaky. I was rambling, confused, heartbroken. I almost deleted it. But I didn't. Because that voice, that broken version of me, is part of the story too. He fought hard to stay kind when bitterness would have been easier. He kept breathing when everything around him collapsed. He kept going. And thanks to him, I'm here now. There's a bench in the park near my house. I sit there sometimes in the evening with a thermos of coffee and watch the sun go down behind the hill. The same spot, week after week. Familiar, peaceful. And sometimes strangers sit next to me. Sometimes they talk. Sometimes we just share the sunset. No names, no stories, no pasts. Just presence. And that's enough. So if you've been through it, if someone you loved broke your heart, betrayed your trust, left you questioning everything, just know this. You are not weak for loving deeply. You are not foolish for believing the best in someone. And you are not broken beyond repair. Sometimes, the people we lose are the ones who are never meant to stay. Sometimes, the fire that burns you is the same fire that forges you into something stronger. You don't need to rush your healing. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Just take the next step, one at a time. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll look around and see that you've built a life that feels like yours again. Maybe even better than before. There's a quiet kind of strength in learning to live without answers. No spotlight, no applause, just the steady decision to wake up, breathe, and begin again. And if this story helped you feel seen, even for a moment, stay with us. There are more stories like this, more voices that deserve to be heard. And maybe, just maybe, one of them will sound a little like yours.